Hi, everybody. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Clear to Send podcast. My name is Rowell Dionisio, your co host, alongside with Francois Verges. How are you, Francois?
I'm very good. How are you, Roa?
I'm doing well. I'm glad to be recording with you on a new topic that's fairly new to me. And I think this is something you've been working on on your
hmm
business, and it's kind of like a new topic in Wi-Fi. It's a new service that's being offered, or that can be offered, and that is Wi-Fi DevOps. Something I'm interested in hearing how what that means to you and how you're doing it. But we will have
hmm
this episode and then a follow-up episode with some use cases.
Yeah, so that's something I've been working on for, I want to say, on the business this year. We started to actually work on different projects, but I've been working and exploring it for maybe the past 2 years now. And it's really interesting to me. I'm learning a whole bunch of new things, and I feel like I'm applying different skills to our our services, our jobs. So it's very exciting to me. So yeah, we wanted to kind of do this episode to introduce the topic to you guys, talk a little bit about what Wi-Fi DevOps is, or more specifically what type of DevOps works can we do with Wi-Fi,
Yeah.
and how we could apply that to our jobs. So that was kind of like the premise to this episode, have this discussion with you, Roel. And I've been working on a couple of projects where, I was able to apply, some of these to my services, and to the work we do, and in order to achieve a couple of objectives. It's been working really well, and I'm having quite a bit of fun as well working on these projects.
Yeah, and I think we've had quite a few episodes in the past about scripting and Python. So this is all just adding up to even to getting to this point where you can apply
hmm
it to your role at your company and start doing this for other clients. Helps to speed up some of the work that would be typically done by an
hmm
individual that might take more than a day or a couple of weeks as a separate project. And then
hmm
you do have, correct me if I'm wrong, you do have some a presentation that you'll be talking about at WLPC Prague, right?
Yes, so I did get selected for that, and I wanted for that presentation more specifically, I wanted to talk about our role as Wi-Fi engineers in the whole DevOps environment, and how we could have some value add, and what type of advantage we have compared to maybe programmers or network engineers. So that's gonna be the topic of my talk. I want to kind of focus on our, I called it our competitive advantage as Wi-Fi engineers doing
Yeah.
DevOps. So
No, that's
so
good.
I have some thoughts. I still need to kind of put everything down on paper and think about it a little bit more, but I have some thoughts I wanted to share. So hopefully it will be a good presentation. I got a 30-minute slot, so I
Yeah,
have to do
pack
some
all
thinking.
that into 30 minutes. And that's good
Yeah.
because the use cases around this, it can be hard to kind of grasp, right? Like what exactly
hmm
could you do with Wi-Fi DevOps? I know it's
hmm
prevalent in the networking field. A lot of network engineers will use automation and
hmm
DevOps on the wired side of things, and it's
hmm
slowly now creeping into the Wi-Fi side of things. There are actually quite a few experts out there who are using automation and DevOps with the
hmm
Wi-Fi vendors. And we see Mist heavily using API. So why don't you
hmm
take it from here and you introduce Wi-Fi DevOps?
Yeah, it's a really good point. And what I call Wi-Fi DevOps is pretty much just DevOps applied to Wi-Fi work. And like you said, on the wired side of the network, we've been seeing people doing DevOps automation work for a little while now. I remember when I first started, I had a colleague who kind of automated the configuration of switches. At the time, we were using like a Bash script and some very early tools before Python kind of took over, and now we have much more advanced tool to do network automation. But yeah, DevOps in the network world has been there for a few years now, and it's like you said, heavily used in the wired network. On the Wi-Fi side of things, we haven't used it as much. Like you say, now we have vendors such as Mist, or even if you think about Aruba and the Meraki, they have their APIs. Cisco, they have their way of doing things as well, so we can communicate with network equipments. And so now we have a little bit more tools to start doing DevOps around Wi-Fi, and try to apply the same automation task, automation, I guess, way of thinking to monitor and to configure the Wi-Fi network. And I think it can really be valuable in Wi-Fi, especially when we deploy a lot of APs, right? We can do a lot of repetitive work when we deploy a lot of access points in Wi-Fi, especially if you're like over 100 and 200 and even in the thousands. It becomes a very tedious task to do the Wi-Fi design, to document, to do the configuration, track everything. And this is where I think DevOps automation can really help us. And this is pretty much what I call Wi-Fi DevOps, and creating different scripts, automation tools that can help us design Wi-Fi, document the Wi-Fi design, configure the Wi-Fi equipment, and then monitor the Wi-Fi equipment as well.
What was the first iteration of a script that you created that would be applied to Wi-Fi DevOps?
I think the first script I was doing was just to rename access points, like in the Ekahau project file. I think that was like the very first one.
Yeah.
Um, and then I don't know, I just had multiple use cases after that. I would also try to get use cases from other people and try to see if I could implement it. So that's something I did at the beginning. And then slowly but surely I kind of developed different tools, and more advanced, I guess, script to achieve different goals. So maybe we can have like a follow-up episode where I can showcase a couple of the things we've been building, and we've been using on our end. But it's fun when you start doing programming and automation. Every time you start something, you realize that you'll have new ideas as you write your code. You have new ideas of how to make it better and how to improve it. So ideas uh, never stops coming in, which is, I guess, it's a good and a bad thing. It's a good thing because you always have new things to create, but then you feel you're never done
Yeah.
completing a project, because you always want to kind of optimize and make it better.
Yeah. So where do you find that balance then between doing the actual work and creating some sort of script to automate that work? Because I'm sure if you're in the middle of working for a project, you're not going to stop everything and say, I'm going to script this out. Or maybe you can. I guess it depends how quickly you could write a script. If it was me, I would probably take days and days to create a script. How does that work for you?
Yeah. So I tend to prioritize the projects I'm working on. So if I can justify that what I'm doing will be beneficial to the project, I cannot, do it. And then it kind of forces me to write it and have it ready. So that's kind of like what I do. And then if I have an idea of something that could be useful but not really applicable to the project I'm working on, I just put it aside. And then next time around, if I have time, or if I have, one day I wake up and I want to do it, I'll just do it at that time. But it's for me, it's driven by the projects I'm working on. So like you said, I don't waste too much time, and I still make it worth it for what I'm working on. And that's why sometimes I even I would add tasks for myself, just so I can get some stuff done, as part of a specific project,
Hmm.
because you're especially with with networking, we have that as well, but especially with programming, you have a lot of shortcuts you can take. And so I refrain myself to take these shortcuts. So I always, when I when I write a program, I always try to make it generic so I can reuse it in the future. And I try to avoid having a lot of static information and make it a one time off. So that's something I do a lot. So it might take me longer to kind of work on the programs I create, but at least I can reuse them in the future. Yeah.
And how much time are you saving with some of these scripts and automation? Like, is it just an hour
Mhm.
of work, or are we talking about more?
Yeah, and I guess it depends on what you're doing, but this is when this is when we can talk about when we would do Wi-Fi DevOps, right? Because it's not always applicable. If it's really applicable if you have to do a lot of repetitive task, a high number of times, because then you can just you're going to spend a little bit of time creating the tool, but then you can save all of that time back by running the tool and letting the computer do the work for you. Um, so sometimes it makes sense. Other times it's not going to make sense because one, it's not a repetitive task, so you're not going to be able to do it faster, by just scripting it out. And second of all, sometimes the scripting part can be very complex, so then you can spend a whole bunch of time trying to script it out, and then it would have been faster to just do it yourself. So you kind of have to, before you start, or when you have an idea, before you start, you kind of have to wait and see, okay, does it make sense for me to do it? I'm going to say, am I going to save time? And sometimes you do save a lot of time. So for us, we've been working on a couple of projects where we have a lot of APs, um, like more than 1,000, or you could say thousands of APs. And when you have a lot of APs, it always makes sense to automate, because it's always going to be faster than doing the work manually. So we just automating things. It's just like it saves hours of work, weeks maybe. So it can be beneficial if you're in a position where you have to provide a service. It scales really well, so it can be beneficial to script it out and then save hours of men work, and then maybe you can provide your services faster. If you provide the services faster, customer is happier, you're happier, so win-win. I guess.
Yeah. And what
Yeah.
would an example of something like that be with thousands of APs beyond just renaming APs? Are you talking
Yeah.
about
So.
placing APs on a design that's different
Mhm.
from like a Ekahau planner?
No, so what we've been doing is we've been doing a little bit of work starting from an ACAO project file, but then we process the information differently. So we export the information using different Python scripts. So one thing that we do is create like a map with the AP locations. And then we use the AP location we have and the AP names we have in the project file. We use the colors from the colors from the project files, and then we can add like a legend for the type of APs. We add some sort of header with metadata, stuff like this, and then if we have like multiple floors, we can just export the images, pack it up as a PDF, and then you after running a script, you can have a PDF with all of the AP locations, their names, and details that you could provide to the installer or the customer. That's one thing we do. We also do export information for the installers based on the tags. Um, so we have different tools to kind of auto populate tags in Ekahau automatically, so you don't have to create the tags manually. And then we have another tool to kind of export all of the installation data in like an Excel sheet or something like this that we can then upload to Google Sheet. Um, and so all of this work manually takes a lot of time.
Yeah, for sure.
But running the scripts, it's you know I don't know, it takes for the image processing, it takes a little longer, maybe 1 second per floor. But exporting the data, it's like, I don't know, It's like 100 millisecond per floor, maybe. It's fast. It's
Yeah.
faster than us doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, and you've got a lot of different components there. So you're not just working with one file, like one Ekahau project
Yeah.
file, but you're also tying in Google Sheets, possibly
Hmm.
other services from Google, like Google Drive, storing the files there, and
Yeah.
then being able to not have to manually do data entry is going to be a time saver.
Hmm. Yeah, and with APIs nowadays, you can tie in different services. Like you said, the Google services are not too hard to work with. I used to, for the Google Sheet, I used to create like a Google Sheet on the fly as I would get information. Um, what I'm doing now is I create an Excel file and then I upload to the Google Drive because it's just one API call, so it's a little faster.
I
And Google
see.
Drive can analyze like a XLX file and convert it into
Yeah.
a
Sorry,
Google
in
a
that
Google
use
Sheet.
case, are you creating a CSV file or is it just a straight up Excel workbook
No, no,
file?
it's a Excel. It's a
Okay.
XLSX. So
Okay.
they have a Python library. It's called OpenPyXL.
Okay.
And you can create that's also different things you can do with Python, right? For the documentation, we can create Excel sheet. I've created doc files as well, so there's another library. You can create doc files or docx files, in which you can have like images, tables. It's pretty cool. You can pretty much create your custom report. If the custom report from Makeout doesn't get it and you want to create your own, you can do that with Python, which is amazing. Or you can, in, get data from different sources and create your own. And then the API stuff, you can talk to Google Drive. You could talk to your vendors' APIs as well. You and I use Notion, so we could talk to Notion as well using the API and create like a web page that we could share with customers. So it's that's a beauty of Python, is that it's very flexible in what you want to do, and you can create really custom applications based on the use cases. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Lots of
and this is
possibilities there.
yeah, and this is another point I wanted to talk about, is when you start doing automation work around Wi-Fi. What I've seen is you'll see that different customers have different requirements. So it's a very like specific set of requirements every time. It's like a per project type of thing, per customer type of thing. But because Python is very versatile, and you can create the application that they would want and make it meet their requirements. And this is, on the couple of DevOps projects we've worked on this year, that's what we've been doing, is work with the customer and try to see exactly what they want, and then build the application that kind of meets their requirements. And the customer may have different vendors, they might use different tools. One customer might be using Google Drive, the other one Box. One customer might be using, Ekahau, the other one, another tool. And one customer could be using Cisco, another one Mist. So we it's kind of like trying to work with all of these tools, all of these APIs, and our job is pretty much creating the glue that will kind of make everything flow together and make all this system communicate with one another. um yeah.
We had a previous episode with Shatil on Grafana
Hmm.
and ingesting data, putting it into a visual representation. Would that be considered as part of Wi-Fi DevOps as well?
Hmm. Yeah, I think so, because you could, before sending the data to Grafana, you could be talking to different system or having the data coming from different systems, and then you could create customized dashboard that fits like a specific need. Yeah, so I could see that as Wi-Fi DevOps. If your customer is only interested in, let's say, I don't know, number of, if you do like an event, like they have Cisco Live right now, if you want to know, um, how many visitors we have, or how many client devices we have connected to the Wi-Fi, how many data have we moved today? That's kind of like what they showcase, right?
Yeah.
At Cisco Live. So if you just want to have a dashboard with that information, then you can just create a Grafana dashboard that takes that information and display it on a big screen on a dashboard, and you can display that, in the lobby of the Cisco Live event. And that would be like a custom dashboard that you can create for a specific need.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I would consider that Wi-Fi DevOps, because it allows you to create like a custom solution that meets like a very specific Wi-Fi need, I guess.
Yeah, and I remember at Cisco Live, they were creating these dashboards that looked
Hmm.
complex because they were taking data in from multiple places, right? Some data comes in via SNMP, some data is from NetConf, and then they have
Hmm.
to kind of massage that data to what they want to show you as an output. And
Hmm.
sometimes it requires some sort of orchestration of multiple scripts in order to gather that data. They put it into a database and then kind of put it all together in a graph, right? So
Hmm.
that's why I asked that, because it kind of sounds like Wi-Fi DevOps, just kind of like another piece of it that isn't necessarily always creating a script and automating, but there is a portion of automation there. But now you're interfacing data with visualizations.
Yeah, and then if you talk about, we've talked about Wi-Fi design, but if you talk about Wi-Fi operations, then you can think about a whole bunch of things you could do, tasks you could do, automate, like automation around some Wi-Fi task that you would do on a regular basis. Let's say you're upgrading access points. Okay, you could think about, okay, what I do when I upgrade access points, which part of the process can I automate? How many access points do I upgrade? A year or every 2 years or whatnot. And then you could just take these and try to see if you could, automate some of the process. Something when you troubleshoot, what do I do when I troubleshoot? Or do I have things specific to my organization? What am I asking as information? Who am I emailing? Who do I need to contact? Which ticket do I need to open? So specific to your organization, you may have some tasks that you may be able to automate around Wi-Fi operations. So I think there's also possibilities, a whole bunch of possibilities around Wi-Fi operations of
Yeah.
things we could automate, especially with the APIs we have today. Every tool we use pretty much have an API today, which makes it very interesting. I was testing sending webhooks messages to Slack
Yeah.
the other day from Mist, um, which is pretty cool. I have it set up now. Every time a rogue is detected by my APs, I have a message in Slack. But yeah, so you could think about a whole bunch of different cases. Like I said, most of the time it's going to be specific to your organization. Um, but you could try to think about a couple of things you could automate and develop and make your life easier. And you can send emails in Python, right? Think about that.
Yeah.
Um, so if
Yeah.
there's like a emails you send on a regular basis all the time, the same email, you could probably automate that.
Yeah, I think you made a
Um,
lot of good references to different processes that can be
mhm,
created, especially around ticket generation. I can see troubleshooting tools that people can carry and run if they need to go
mhm,
on site and you need data collection, but they're not necessarily like Wi-Fi experts. So maybe there's a script you run that they already have applications on their laptop. They just run the script and then it gets all that data for you. And then from there, you can actually have it dump all that data to Google Drive, or maybe it uploads it to Slack, like RSSI details and whatnot. So there's so
yeah.
much you can do, lots of different possibilities. Even just use talking about these starts generating ideas of my own.
Yeah, you have, like, if you think about the tools you could use to do DevOps in general, not just Wi-Fi DevOps, but just DevOps in general. Obviously, you could write your own Python code. If you've never done Python before and it looks a little daunting to you, you could use applications where you don't have to do much coding. So if you look at Postman, it's an application that allows you to make API calls, and in between API calls, you could do a little bit of JavaScript coding to kind of tie everything together. So that's an application that's pretty popular as well to interact with different APIs. Um, um, yeah, and then there's this no code um, idea. I don't know if it's like a no code philosophy more, and they have a whole bunch of tools that allows you to do automation without coding. So you could look into that as well. They have you can find them on the internet, a whole bunch of tools that are no code tools, that allows you to do some automation like that. Um, so it's I think it's more accessible now than it used to be.
Yeah.
And then once you have created your application, if you want to share it with your colleague or if you want to share it with people, you can always, create, like, package them in like a Docker container, and then you
Yeah.
can run it from anywhere. So it's easier than ever to build them and to share them, so they could be used across across your team. Um, so
Or
it's
to share with others in the community, like how you've done
yeah,
in using GitHub.
yeah, exactly. Or you can share it with, if you think it's generic enough, you can share it with people. So it's yeah, it's I think it's easier than ever to start looking into it and see how you could optimize the way you work. And anyway, it's coming to networking, right?
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, it's been around just not for the wireless portion of networking, but now we're seeing a
mhm,
lot of it, and it's only just we're just scraping the surface here with Wi-Fi DevOps, and we just wanted to give you guys this introduction because Francois has been doing more projects that have to do with Wi-Fi DevOps. He's implementing it in his own business, improving his
mhm,
workflows. And so our follow-up episode to this one will be around an actual use case where Francois will show you an example script that he's created to speed up process and be more productive. Because as we take on more work, I mean, everyone's always taking on more work, right?
mhm.
Trying to do more work but get it done more efficiently. So that's what we're going to show you in a follow-up episode, a future episode of Wi-Fi DevOps. This was more just an introduction to try to define what Wi-Fi DevOps is, some examples that we can talk about, and now we'll try to maybe I'll have something by the time by the time we
Mhm.
have the use case. But thank you, Francois, for providing that introduction and sharing your knowledge and experience with others as kind of an inspiration to what's possible.
No problem. And yeah, I'm looking forward to kind of showcase a couple of things we've been working on. I think it will be more visual for everyone to see. We'll put it on YouTube and stuff. I'm still working on preparing something, so I'm looking forward to be able to kind of show you and get the wow effect, I guess, hopefully from you.
All right. Well, thank you guys for listening or watching this episode. Be on the lookout for the follow up episode, but head over to cleartosend.net and you'll find all of our episodes there. So thank you guys.
Thank you.